Welcome back to 10 Foot Customs on this gorgeous Monday morning. I have got a few different plans for today. One, as I am right now, I'm on my way to go fill up my welding tank. So I got some welding plans coming up in the next week or so. So welding tank getting filled, and then the biggest plans for today is I still got the Nova at my house, and I want to figure out what's going on with the fuel pump and see why it's so loud. It has gotten quieter. On our trip back, it did get quieter, but it's still rather loud, so there's a good chance whoever installed it didn't isolate it, and it just zip tied to the frame rail. So I want to check that out to see if we can try to make that fuel pump quieter. I don't even know if it's an in-tank or an external, so we need to find that out as well. Those are the plans for today. But first, coffee. I'm pulling into Dunkin' right now to get my coffee. So, hang around for the day. It's going to be just an odds and ends kind of episode. So far, not starting out the day so well. I drove out to where I normally get my my gas filled, and I was out there maybe 6 months ago, maybe less. Hard to tell with winter and how much I welded this past winter, but yeah, well, I drove out there and they are permanently closed. So now I've got to find another place to get my gas filled, and around here there's a lot of companies that do welding gas, but you have to have an account with them, and I think you have to have a card on deposit, and I don't fill my welding tank often enough to warrant that. So I'm going to have to do some research now and do some calling around to see if I can find someone who will just fill the tanks that I own. So far, not great, but the temperature's starting to warm up, and head back home, and we will pull the cover off of the Nova and take a look at it, and we'll put the plugs on it and go from there. First thing we're going to try to figure out today is the fuel pump. It is just crazy loud, and I'll turn it on here and you can hear it. So that's the fuel pump running. I found the fuel pump. See if I can hold this very well. So there's our fuel pump, and it is kind of isolated. It is just a massive fuel pump, though. Oh, who makes it? Oh, it's from Summit. So what I'm going to attempt to do here is pull it down and see if it's just as loud when it's disconnected from the frame. Because there's isolating, they've got it isolated here, there, like around, there's a piece of rubber around it, and then they've got it isolated up here, and on the back side there's rubber grommet. So they tried to quiet it down. Huh. This is blue here, and I've got orange on the top of the car. That's interesting. It is isolated and it is just loud. So I don't know if this is the original pump that they put in here when they did the restoration, but if it is, it could be up to 12 years old. And if that's the case, then it could just be that these old pumps are loud. Again, it does say Summit on it, so I'm sure there's a part number on it, and I can look it up to see what the GPM is on it. And I mean, this is actually leaking, so replacing it probably isn't the worst idea. But the vibration, if I put my hand up on the top of the bracket, there's like no vibration. It's literally just the noise of the pump resonating through the car. So yeah, I'll see if I can get a part number on here, and we'll order up a new pump. Hopefully a much quieter pump than this one. It is a few days since the last video, and parts are showing up. This is what we're going to work on today. We got our fuel pump in. It is isolated on this bracket, but I thought I wanted to isolate it. The idea of changing this is because we want it as quiet as possible, so I wanted to isolate it a little bit more. So I went to the hardware store and got some not O-rings, some grommets and some bolts, and then I had a scrap piece of I don't know what that is, that thickness diamond plate. So I just mounted to that, and then that will mount underneath the car. And then these input and output hoses should be the exact same size as the ones that are on it, so we should be able to just pull the ones off the old pump, put them onto this pump, and install this pump. So that is the plan before the sun goes down. But first, I did want to run a decibel meter on this pump to see how much quieter we are getting. So I have a decibel meter running in here. I'll turn the other fuel pump on, and we'll see how loud it is, and then we'll put this fuel pump in and do the same thing, roughly in the same location, and we'll see the difference. So in the trunk, this is running so far. So that looked to have been averaging about 65 decibels on that. The pump in the car currently now is a 140 gallon per hour pump, and we're going down to a 110. That's a Summit pump. This is a Mallory pump. From the reading I did on Summit's website, a car that puts out 500 horsepower carbureted should require between 50 and like 60 gallon per hour. So this pump that's in here is way more than this car needs. I don't think we're running 500 horsepower. I don't think even running well, this is going to be a 500 horsepower car. So 110 is still way more than enough. So even if we do get it tuned up and it does run, you know, 450, 500, this pump is still going to be more than enough. So let's get underneath there, get this one unbolted and unwired, and we will get this one installed. pump is out, and I need to pull these ends off. Yeah, easy peasy. Okay, there we go. So both these are going on. Tightening is better than loosening. Hopefully that will work as the angle. Now, you need to try to duplicate this angle to a degree. So we'll just take a Sharpie and a couple blocks of wood and bend it. Just there. It's about the same height. With these brackets, I'll go to that and come in something around there. And put a bend in it to about there. So we'll cut it off there and bend a 45 into it about there. I'm so dumb. I showed you where I had to cut this line and bend on that line, and I cut on the wrong line, and now my bracket's too short. So I'm now going to cut this line straighter and bolt it to the old bracket. And then this has already got the bend in it that I need anyway. So this is basically just an adapter plate and it'll be fine. So that's the next plan. Dinner has come and gone, and so I ate, and when I came back outside there's no more sunshine. So now we're just underneath no sunshine. And I also had to go pick up a piece of fuel line. Hose lamps are done. The only thing I don't have, that these bolts here up, these bolts up here are too, they have a shoulder on them, so I can't pull these bolts tight yet. I have to get different bolts to pull these tight, but it's close. So if I throw a couple washers on, I might be able to pull it tight. But other than that, that's all good. I'm going to now hook up my power lines, hook up my ground wire, and we should be good. Okay, both those are soldered in because we're working with fuel. And I don't have the heat gun out here. I'm just going to use the soldering iron to shrink the wires. Or to shrink up the shrink tube. Put a couple zip ties on to hold everything in position. And assuming that our clamp hold, we're done. Okay, now is the moment we've all been waiting for. Again, this isn't mounted. We know this. But it's mounted enough that it's not going to change much from there. Plenty away from the axle. There's no way that axle is going to come back and hit this. I'm not concerned about that at all. Okay. The decibel meter is back in the car. I'm now going to turn the fuel pump on. And I will reset the meter because it's already going, but I'll reset it and we'll see how much quieter it is. Oh, with the new pump in there, With the new pump, the decibels dropped by like 10 or a little over 10, I think, than the average. But it went from conversation to quiet office, and again, you are inside of a gigantic drum. So I'm going to go into the car itself now and see what the difference is sitting in the car. Sitting in the car, it's way less obnoxious than it was, and now it's just the quiet hum of a fuel pump. So it's way better. I have a little bit of a leak back there. I just looked. One of my fittings is leaking, so I have to go underneath there and give it a little bit of a turn and tighten it up. But other than that, I don't even know if you're going to hear it over top of the engine running, honestly. And with that, we're going to end this video. Some minor odds and ends I got to do to dial it in again. Replace those bolts that hold it to the spare tire well, or whatever that is. I think it's spare tire well. And fix that real light leak underneath there. But other than that, it's pretty good. I think once the engine's running, you're really not going to hear the fuel pump at all. So that's fantastic. So thank you all for watching. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and I hope everybody has a great week. I just finished the minor odds and ends that had to be done on the Nova. Tightened up the fuel line that was leaking, bolted it, got the shorter bolts and bolted it in nice and tight, and then was able to start it since it wasn't so late at night and run it. And when you're sitting in the car with that Mallory fuel pump running and the engine's running, you can't even hear the fuel pump. So the difference between those 10 or 12 decibels is staggering as far as overall noise goes. I actually had my head in the trunk while it was running, and I couldn't hear the fuel pump over the engine running with my head almost over top of the fuel pump. So this is going to make a huge difference and going to make the owner of the car super happy.